Hello everyone, welcome to this series on History of English Literature, and in this video we are going to discuss the life and works of John Donne, which would be our second video on John Donne, as we have already done a video on some important facts about his life and works. So let's start. Introduction. John Donne, an English poet and cleric, is renowned for his profound and complex works that span across poetry and prose. His contributions to literature are marked by their intensity, intellectual depth, and innovative use of language. This video explores Donne's life, his poetic and prose works, and his enduring influence on English literature. His life. John Donne was born in 1573 in London to a wealthy merchant family. His parents were Roman Catholics and he was educated in their faith before attending Oxford and Cambridge. In 1592, he entered the Inns of Court, where he immersed himself in wide reading and the life of a dissolute man about town. Between 1590 and 1601, Donne wrote his satires, songs and sonnets and elegies, though they were not published until after his death in 1633. Donne's ambition for a worldly career was thwarted by his runaway marriage to the niece of his patron. This act led to several years of suitorship, during which he struggled to secure his place in society. In 1650, following a severe personal struggle, Donne entered the Anglican Church and became Dean of St. Paul's in 1621, a position he held until his death in 1631. He was recognized as the first great Anglican preacher. His poetry. John Donne stands out among Elizabethan poets for his independence and innovative approach. He rebelled against the easy, fluent style and stock imagery of his contemporaries, aiming instead for a reality of thought and vividness of expression. His poetry is characterized by its forceful, vigorous nature, and despite some rhythmic faults, it often achieves a strange harmony. Donne's satires, such as Of the Progress of the Soul, 1601, reveal his dissatisfaction with the world around him through critical and cynical perspectives. Written in couplet form, these satires influenced later poets like Dryden and Pope. His love poems, including the songs and sonnets, are intense and subtle analyses of lovers' moods expressed in vivid and startling language. A vein of satire runs through these poems as well, with dramatic rhythms and colloquial language, creating the illusion of excited talk. Donne's religious poetry, written after 1610, includes the 19 holy sonnets and lyrics such as A Hymn to God the Father, composed after his wife's death in 1617. These works are intensely personal and reveal the internal struggle preceding his ordination in the Anglican Church, his horror and fascination with death, and his longing for God's love. Characteristics of his poetry. Donne's poetry is distinguished by its forcefulness and vigor. His cynical and critical nature, combined with keenly psychological focus, led to the creation of satires and love poems that are both vivid and intensely personal. His use of dynamic rhythms and vivid speech, coupled with intellectual subtlety and striking imagery, mark his work as unique. Donne's love poetry, such as A Validation of Weeping, exemplifies his use of striking imagery and rhythmic excitement. These poems reflect his vivid language and emotional intensity, capturing the complex moods of a lover in a manner that avoids conventional patterns. His religious poems, including the holy sonnets, are characterized by a deeply personal reflection and a preoccupation with death. For instance, "What if this present were the world's last night?" reveals Donne's intense personal reflection and concern with mortality, embodying the intellectual and emotional depth typical of his religious works. Metaphysical poetry. John Donne famously remarked that Donne affects the metaphysics, a statement that led to the term metaphysical being applied to Donne and his followers. Metaphysical poetry is marked by its abstract reasoning, philosophical depth, and a blend of thought and devotion. Donne's poetry is known for its unusual and striking imagery, often drawing comparisons from a wide range of knowledge. For example, Donne likens parted lovers to the legs of a pair of compasses, love to a spider that transubstantiates all, and his sick body to a map with physicians as cosmographers. This imaginative and sometimes far-fetched imagery is a hallmark of Donne's metaphysical style. His prose. John Donne's prose works are substantial in both volume and significance. His Pseudo-Martyr 1610 defends the oath of allegiance, while Ignatius his Conclave 1611 satirizes Ignatius Loyola and the Jesuits. However, his Devotions 1614, which detail his spiritual struggles during a serious illness, provide the best introduction to his prose. These writings, like his poetry, are intensely personal, revealing keen psychological insights and a preoccupation with death and sinfulness. Donne's finest prose works are his sermons, numbering around 160. In 17th century England, sermons were a significant influence, and Donne, as a powerful preacher in London, wielded considerable impact. His sermons, such as Death's Duel 1630, showcase many of the features of his poetry: personal appeal, dramatic technique, unusual wit, and morbid themes. Example of his prose. The ending of Donne's last sermon, Death's Duel 1630, illustrates his dramatic emotional appeal and quest for rest in God. His passage, often called his funeral sermon, highlights the intensity and personal nature of his prose, drawing the audience into a contemplation of mortality and divine grace. His influence. Although Donne's unique style made it difficult for any succeeding poet to closely resemble him, his influence is strongly felt in both courtly and religious poetry of the subsequent generation. The metaphysical school includes poets such as George Herbert, Richard Crashaw, Henry Vaughan, Robert Herrick, Thomas Carew, and Andrew Marvell. While these poets reflect Donne's influence, they each bring their unique perspectives and styles to their work. Conclusion. John Donne remains a complex and influential figure in English literature. His revolutionary approach to poetry and prose, characterized by intellectual depth, striking imagery, and intense personal reflection, has left a lasting legacy. Donne's influence is evident in the metaphysical poets who followed him and continues to be felt in the broader realm of English literature. So this was the discussion on the life and works of John Donne. We will meet in the next video and discuss some other topic. Until then, goodbye and thank you.